In this video, I want to show you how to write methods in C#. So I'm placing all my code here behind this button. Well, this button is going to call the methods that I'm going to write underneath. So I'm going to write a method that doesn't return any value and doesn't take in any values, so it has no parameters. I'm going to write a method that doesn't return anything but does take in parameters, and I'm going to write a method that does return a value and takes in a parameter as well. So the first method I'm going to write, which you need to write first, is the return type. So void means that this method does not return anything, and I'm going to call this method print hello. The round brackets afterwards are required, the parentheses, they are required, and because I have nothing in them, that means that this method does not take in any values, so it does not declare any parameters. And what I'm going to put in here is debug.writeLine, just to print into the output window. It's going to print hello. Now, if you don't see debug available here, that means that I need to add in a using at the top. So using is saying, please let me use the following namespace. So it's in system.diagnostics. That will allow me to use any classes that are in this diagnostics namespace. So now down here, debug.writeLine. So what it's going to do is print out hello. Now I'm calling debug.writeLine. That's a method. When you call a method, you have to specify the round parameters, and then I'm passing a string into that writeLine method. Now, to use the method that I've just written, print hello, from behind my button code, to call the method, I call it by its name, and I must put the parentheses afterwards. Because there are no parameters here, I cannot pass in, the brackets have to basically match. So if they're empty here, they have to be empty where I call the method from as well. So that is the declaration of my method print hello. Void means it doesn't return anything. Print hello is the name, and empty parenthesis means it doesn't take in any parameters. So when I call the method behind my button, I can't pass in any values. So when I run my program and press the button, hello will be printed into the output window. So I'll just do that to show that that's how that works. Now the program is running, so when I press the button, you can see that hello is printed there out into the output window. Now to move on to the other types of methods. So no return value, so again that would be void. This time I want to call this add two numbers. So add two numbers. This time in the parentheses I want to take in two values. So I'm going to take in an int and call it number 1, and take in a second int and call that number 2. Now these parameters, they are local to this method, which means number 1 and number 2 can only be seen inside that set of curly brackets. So I'm going to print out the value of the two numbers added together. What I could do is do it all in the debug.writeLine, or if I wanted to be a little bit more explicit, I could write an int result, assign the value of 0, and then say result equals to number 1 plus number 2, and then debug.writeLine, it knows what I want to do here already, debug.writeLine, and print out the result. Now if I want to be a little bit more explicit here, I could say that, you know, the first number plus the second number is. So what I'm going to do for this is that string interpolation, so $, before the string, and I want to say, so in my curly brackets I'm putting in an expression, so number 1, so say I pass in 10, then that would say 10 plus, and my second value, if I pass in 8 for instance, so it would say 10 plus 8. I could put in equals, and then I want the answer there, which I've stored in a variable above their result. Now if I run this program right now and press the button that I have, it'll only call the print hello method. So if you write a method, it won't do anything unless you actually call it. So here I could write add two numbers, open up the round bracket, it takes in two integers. I must pass in two integers or something that would fit into an integer, like a byte or a short. So here I'm going to pass in 10, 8, and make sure you put a semicolon at the end of the line. If I wanted to, I could declare int num1 equals 20, and another here, int num2 equals 30. I'll go with that suggestion. I'm going to call my method that I've written underneath, add two numbers, and this time I could pass in my variable num1 and num2 that I've just declared on the previous line. So that is another way of of calling the method. So I could pass in literals 10 and 8, or I could declare two variables and pass those in num1 and num2. So now to run this and just to test that out. So again, my code there is behind the button. So firstly, add two numbers with 10 and 8, so 10 plus 8 equals 18. And then the second time around, add two numbers, I pass in 20 and 30, and there we have 20 plus 30 equals 50. Now, and finally then, the other type of method that will return a value and take in a parameter. So this time I'm going to call my method multiply by 10, and it's going to return a double type. And here is where I make up the name of the method, multiply by 10. And this time if I only take in one parameter, I would declare it there, the data type and the name. And again, that double number, that parameter is local to this method. It can only be seen inside here. Now if I wanted to, I could have a one-liner, return number multiply by 10, or if you want to be more explicit, you have double result equals 0. You could assign the value on the next line, result equals the number passed in, multiply by 10. And finally, this next line is required. I must return a value. Because the return type is a double, I have to return a double or something that would implicitly fit into a double, like an int would fit, or a short, or a float. Return result and semicolon. So now it compiles. That will return the result back to where this method is called from. You can see here in Visual Studio 2022 that it has no references, so it's telling me that this method has not been called. So back up to the code behind my button. To call this method, it will be multiply by 10. Multiply by 10, open up my round bracket, and it wants to receive a double, so I can pass in a double or anything that would implicitly fit into a double. So I can of course pass in 22 for instance, because that's an int, but it will fit into a double. Now, so when this program is executed, it will start off with the print hello, that will go down to the print hello method, it'll come back up to the code where it was called from, then it will call add two numbers, it will go down there, work out the result and print out the result of the two of those added together, then back up to where it was called from, then it will declare two variables, call the add two numbers again, control will go down, it would print out the result of that, come back to where it was called from, and then it will call multiply by 10, pass down 22, and it will declare there 22 times 10 and return the result. Now I've missed a vital thing. It'll return the result back to where I've called this from. So if I don't do something with this here, I won't get a value printed out. So what I could put in here is int result equals, so multiply by 10, so 22 will be passed down, multiply by 10, 220 will come back, and now I could print this out from here. Debug.writeLine, and it's making a suggestion there, and there we go. Now I've made another mistake. Multiply by 10 there returns a double, and I have assigned that result to an int, so that has to be the same data type or something that would fit, that could hold a double. Now so finally I'll just run that and make sure that that's okay. So what I'm really looking at is the last print out there, the multiply by 20 to 20, so that's what was returned. And that is methods in C#.